All right. So I think a really important place for us to begin would be to review some of the CSS and HTML fundamentals. And what we'll do is in the sort of the next handful of exercises, we'll review some of the fundamentals that we saw back in Dreamweaver CS5 101, the 101 course. And the reason why I want to review the fundamentals is, well, first of all, I want to make sure that we're all at the same spot. We're all singing from the same hymn sheet, as they say. And I also want to reinforce some of these fundamentals because this is really going to be sort of the foundation that you and I kind of spring forth from as we work along through Dreamweaver and CSS together. So if we nail down the fundamentals and we all understand where we're starting from, then it's going to make things a heck of a lot easier later on. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the separation of content and formatting. And remember that HTML is your content, it's your structure, it's I think of it as the skeletal structure, and the CSS is the dress up. The CSS is the presentation of that structure, right? So all CSS is going to do is either format our content or control our page layout. That's the two things that CSS is going to do for us here. Now, in this exercise, I want to hammer this home for you, and you're more than welcome to follow along if you want. I'm inside the project file called index.html. You're more than welcome to fire up Dreamweaver and pop open that file. That's fine. Or, you can just kick back and watch the show and maybe jot down a couple of notes. So, all right, here we go. The separation of content and the formatting of that content. So as you can see, we're looking at a page layout here. It's a fairly simple page layout just because I want to keep things simple and straightforward here and not do anything that's too overwhelming. And as you can see over inside my CSS Styles panel, remember that's available from our window menu, right? Window and then CSS Styles. Inside the CSS Styles panel, I'm on the All button up at the top, and we can see a list of CSS rules, right? Now, what I want to do essentially is I want to deactivate the CSS rules so that we can just see this plain, raw, unformatted skeletal structure of our page. So let me introduce you to a new toolbar inside Dreamweaver. Well, actually, I don't think it's too new. I think it's been around for a few versions, but it's new for us. We haven't seen it yet. So what I'm gonna do here up on the toolbar is I'm just gonna right-click there, and I'm going to choose Style Rendering, or if you want, you can head to your View menu and then all the way down to Toolbars, and then look for Style Rendering. And you should get this fella here with a whole sort of series of buttons here. And what we can do, and I'm kind of foreshadowing here, is we can create different lists of CSS rules called style sheets for different mediums. So for example, right now, this first button is turned on, render screen media. We could have print media. We could have mobile media or handheld media. We could have projection media, and on and on and on. So in other words, the page that we are displaying to our viewers will be able to tell what device the page is being viewed on and thus serve up a different style sheet. Isn't that insane? So if you're looking at my web page on a handheld device, it's going to look different. I'm going to control the formatting on the handheld device versus looking at it on a regular computer or maybe when you print out my document, right? We can do all kinds of cool stuff. But again, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. All I really want to do is I want to click on this button right here, toggle displaying of CSS styles. If I click on that guy, what that does is that deactivates all of the CSS rules, all of the CSS styles that we see inside the styles panel over on the right-hand side. So again, this little button here looks like a little blue staircase. He's a toggle on and off, just like that, right? So if you want to get a sense of the difference between HTML and CSS, what I see here is plain, raw HTML. And as we already know, HTML is boring and plain, and it doesn't really do a whole lot, and it's a little bit lame and kind of archaic and all that kind of stuff, right? But as soon as I dress it up with some CSS, all right, now it's happening. Now we have something that looks a little bit more contemporary, right? Okay, so I want to hammer that home for you. The other thing that I want to bounce off of you really quickly here is I have already headed up to, remember the little globe drop-down menu that we have, preview in browser? And I already have my page open inside Chrome, if I just flip over to Chrome. So there's my page open up inside a web browser, right? Now, we can't, unfortunately, unless we dig into some of the browser settings, we can't turn on and shut off the display of CSS very easily inside a browser. But for whatever reason, maybe you want to be able to see how your page would look if we didn't have any CSS applied to it inside the browser, right? So check this out. I'm going to head back to Dreamweaver just for a second here. And hold on to your hats. I'm going to go into the code view here. And remember from the Dreamweaver 101, we learned that code is nothing to be intimidated by. It's simple and it's pretty straightforward. You just have to know a couple of things, right? So if I scroll up to the top of my code, I can see my internal style sheet, right? All of the same rules that I see over inside the panel on the right are also inside the code because I have what's referred to as an internal style sheet. And later on, we'll get it more into internal style sheets and external style sheets, and we'll talk about using multiple style sheets and all kinds of wonderful things. But in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to comment out my internal style sheet. And if you don't know about HTML comments, essentially what we can do is mask away or hide away different parts or different areas of our documents, right? So here's what I'm going to do. Look for the line that reads, if you are following me along, style type equals text/CSS. Drop your cursor just above that line and type in an angle bracket, an exclamation point, sounds kind of crazy, and then 2 hyphens. So open angle bracket, exclamation point, hyphen, hyphen. Notice that the style sheet grays out now. And if I scroll down, and if I keep scrolling down, as a matter of fact, the entire document is grayed out now, right? So what happens is when I insert that comment, everything from that point forward now is hidden, right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the closing style element, the open angle bracket / style close angle bracket, find that guy, line 60. And what I'm going to do is drop my cursor below that, and I'm going to close the comment by typing in hyphen, hyphen, close angle bracket, just like that. And everything below that point now comes back to life, right? Okay, so we just masked away, or we just hid all of this code, all of our internal styles, right? Okay, go ahead and save your document if you're following me along. Command-S on the Mac, Control-S on the PC side. I'm going to flip back to my browser, refresh, Command-R or Control-R on the Windows side, and voila, there we go. So there's how our document would look if we didn't have any CSS at all, just plain vanilla HTML, right? And what I mean by plain vanilla is plain heading 1s, plain heading 2s, plain paragraphs, no page layout of any sort. There's no containers or menus or anything like this. We get all of our graphics and we get all of our text content, but nothing's controlling that content, right? It's just plain old HTML. So then, of course, I can always head back to Dreamweaver and then remove those comments that you and I inserted. And comments are always good to know. They always come in handy once in a while, especially when you're troubleshooting something and you're trying to figure out why something isn't working. You can try commenting out different things to see if they're causing a problem, right? Anyway, I just saved there. I took out the comments, I saved, back to my browser, refresh, and poof, the CSS springs back to life. So I hope that hammers home the point or the idea between or I guess the concept of the separation of content versus the formatting of that content. And I want to show you a very cool website that will take this idea even further.